In one Gulf town, nearly 3/4 of all properties are rated at flood risk, and retirees are still moving in on a waiting list. In another, a storm surge rose well over head height through the streets, twice in back-to-back years. A third has a walkable riverfront, Gulf access, a hospital in town, and rent starting under $900 a month. These are 12 real Florida beach towns where a Social Security check still covers the rent. Every single one comes with an honest catch, because on this coast, cheap and risk come in the same envelope. Most people who are planning a Florida retirement are looking at the same short list: Naples, Sarasota, Clearwater. The version this channel covers is the one behind those listings: the fishing villages, river towns, and spring ports where the water is free and the housing hasn't caught up to the rest of the state. That's what we do here, and if you want the unpolished version of Florida retirement delivered every week, subscribe now so you don't miss the rest of this countdown. And here's the thing. The number one town on this list isn't a remote fishing village. It's a walkable, revived downtown with concerts in the park and hospitals on the same street as the river. We'll get there. Number 12, Sebastian. The first thing worth knowing about Sebastian is that Pelican Island sits right there across the water. The very first national wildlife refuge ever established in this country, created before most of coastal Florida was even developed. That history is not decoration. It is the reason this stretch of the Indian River Lagoon has been held back from the kind of overdevelopment that priced out the rest of the Treasure Coast. The median age here is around 58. This is already a retiree town. The lagoon fishing at the Sebastian Inlet is as good as Florida gets. Pelicans stacked on the pilings, boats threading the channel, the refuge tree line sitting low and green across the water. And what keeps Sebastian on a list about Social Security is the median rent, around $840 a month, on the Treasure Coast. That number is real. Your morning belongs to the lagoon and the inlet and the refuge, none of which cost you anything. The rent check clears on a standard Social Security deposit, and the calendar stays open. I keep coming back to that combination. Actual coastal history, actual fishing, and a rent figure that doesn't require a second income to manage. But the catch matters, and it's a clean one. That 840 is a renter's number, not a buyer's. The median home runs about $345,000, out of reach on Social Security alone. And the Treasure Coast carries an extreme hurricane rating, which means if you own here, insurance climbs year after year because the exposure is real and the actuaries know it. Sebastian works when you rent and let someone else carry the storm risk on the property. The National Wildlife Refuge is free. The inlet is free. The rent you can manage. Just don't let anyone put you into the house. Number 11, Port Charlotte. Picture this. You pull your boat out of your own backyard on a Tuesday morning, run one of the saltwater canals straight to Charlotte Harbor, and you are fishing for tarpon and snook before most people have finished breakfast. That is the life Port Charlotte was literally designed to deliver. The town was laid out in the 1950s and 60s around one of the largest saltwater canal systems in the state. Ordinary neighborhood streets where the yards end at dock pilings and the Gulf is a straight shot away. Median home prices run around $300,000, which is low for waterfront, Gulf access Florida. The median age is in the mid-50s. The fishing is world-class. For a long time, this was the pitch. And the pitch was honest. Then September 2022 happened. Hurricane Ian made landfall here as a Category 4, its eye tracking directly over Charlotte Harbor, and it destroyed hundreds of homes and drove surge up the same canals that define the town's appeal. The canals that give you backyard Gulf access are the same channels the storm surge ran. That is not a coincidence. It is the geometry of the place. Insurance in Charlotte County has been climbing ever since, and it does not stop climbing. Port Charlotte was designed so that regular people could live on the water at a price regular people could manage. Ian did not change the design. It rewrote the insurance math. And that math is now part of every offer you make on a house with a dock. Number 10, Titusville. Titusville makes this list on a fact that is hard to fully believe until you sit with it. From a lagoon-front yard in this town, you can watch rockets launch from Kennedy Space Center across the water for free. The Indian River Lagoon runs right between them, and the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge wraps the entire opposite shore. Home prices sit around $270,000, which is low for the Space Coast, and the lagoon pulls manatees along the seawall and keeps the wildlife refuge as your permanent back neighbor. The pitch is real, and I'll say plainly. As retirement backdrops go, that one is hard to top at this price point. The catch arrives in two parts, and both parts matter. First, Titusville is not actually a beach town. The The Atlantic Ocean and its barrier island beaches are a 20 to 30-minute drive across the causeway. There is no sand out the back door. What you have is lagoon, which is beautiful, but it is a different thing than what the word beach implies. Second, that lagoon and river setting comes with serious flood exposure, and homeowners here report insurance running several $1,000s a year. You get a front row seat to the space age and one of the more unusual affordable addresses on the entire Florida coast. Just be honest with yourself about the ocean being a drive away and the insurance bill being anything but small. Number 9, Panama City. Not the beach strip, the city, the one wrapped around St. Andrews Bay with a working marina, genuine bayfront storefronts, and the historic St. Andrews district running along the water. Sugar Sand Gulf beaches are a short drive across the bridge, and home prices sit around $275,000, well below the premium on the resort side of the water. The St. Andrews district is the unglamorous, functional version of the Gulf Coast. Fishing boats, bayfront bars, a waterfront that still works for a living. And that is precisely why it appeals to a retiree who wants real proximity to the Gulf without paying the resort strip price. The catch is written into the landscape in a way that does not fade. In October 2018, Hurricane Michael made landfall here as a Category 5, one of the most powerful storms ever to hit the continental United States, and it damaged or destroyed roughly 60% of Bay County's housing. The recovery is still underway. Michael's biggest legacy for a fixed-income retiree is not just the physical damage. It is a permanently tighter rental market because so much housing simply does not exist anymore, and the knowledge now built into the region that this stretch of Panhandle coast absorbs direct Category 5 hits. The cheapest unit near the Gulf in Bay County is cheap for a reason that is still being cleared away. 6 towns gone, and every one of them comes with either the storm or the surge or the insurance bill. Coming up, a nature coast village where the manatees do the work of keeping rents low, and a Gulf town where nearly 3 in 4 properties carry flood risk, and retirees are still moving in. Number 8, Fort Pierce. Fort Pierce does not get included on the glamorous version of this list, the kind that shows aerial shots of turquoise water and new construction condos. What it offers instead is an actual working Atlantic port town, the Fort Pierce Inlet, a real marina and fishing infrastructure, barrier island beaches on Hutchinson Island across the bridge, and price numbers that are genuinely unusual for an ocean inlet town in Florida. Median rents around $960, home values under $280,000. On the Treasure Coast, with a real inlet and barrier island beaches a short drive away, those numbers require an explanation. The explanation is the mainland core. The divide between Hutchinson Island and the downtown mainland is not subtle. The barrier island neighborhoods are genuinely coastal and significantly safer, while the mainland core carries a poverty rate above 25% of residents and violent crime numbers that run high. Fort Pierce is not a town where you can pick an address at random, sign a lease, and feel good about it. The water and the price are both real. So is the homework required to make sure you are choosing the right part of town. That research is not optional. It is the price of the discount. Number 7, Homosassa. Homosassa is really 2 different places, and the financial trick for a retiree is understanding which one you're actually looking at. Old Homosassa sits right on the spring-fed river, a waterfront village where manatees gather in the clear water every winter, drifting through springs so transparent the animals look suspended in air. That is the version people picture. The catch is that the version people picture costs more. A few miles inland, Homosassa Springs tells a different story. Median home values around $160,000. That is cheap enough to own outright on savings and live genuinely on a Social Security check. A combination that is rarer on this coast than the brochures suggest. I'll be honest, that number stopped me when I first looked at the outline. $160,000, coastal Florida, owned outright. The trade-off is a short drive to the river instead of a walk to it, which for some retirees is fine and for others is the whole point. And there's a harder trade-off that 2024 added to the ledger. Hurricane Helene's surge flooded the low-lying coast here badly. The cheapest Homosassa isn't on the water. The waterfront Homosassa carries both a price premium and flood exposure that Helene just demonstrated is not theoretical. You can afford Homosassa. Whether you can afford the Homosassa with the manatees out the back door is a genuinely different question. Number 6, Crystal River. Crystal River earns a distinction that the rest of this list doesn't. It is the most complete package of livability available on the Nature Coast at this price point. Home values around $260,000, rents near $880 a month, and, crucially, real county hospital access, which is not a luxury detail when you are retired and the nearest emergency room in some of these towns is 19 miles away on a bad road. Crystal River is built around Kings Bay and the springs that feed it, one of the only places on Earth where you can legally swim with wild manatees, and the wildlife refuge that protects them draws serious attention year-round. For a retiree on a fixed income, the combination of the water, the price, and the services in the same place is genuinely unusual. Most towns on this list make you trade one for another. Crystal River comes closer to the full set than anywhere else here. The ground it sits on, though, has not changed. In September 2024, Hurricane Helene drove roughly 8 feet of historic storm surge into the area, flooding hundreds of homes and submerging Highway 19. Crystal River gives you more of what retirement actually requires than almost anywhere else on this coast. The same low, flood-prone ground that kept it affordable is the same ground Helene covered. The top 5 are where this list earns its name. Coming up, the Gulf town where nearly 3/4 of all properties are at flood risk, the Big Bend village with 1 road in and 165 people, and the river town that pulls the whole list together. Number 5, Hudson. Hudson does not look like a Gulf beach town when you first read about it. What it looks like is a Pasco County grid of saltwater canals, manufactured housing, and mobile home parks sitting low on the Gulf's edge, with a modest natural sand beach and deep water canal access threading through the whole thing. What it actually is, financially, is one of the cheapest ways onto the Gulf of Mexico in the entire state of Florida. The manufactured and mobile home stock pulls some median figures into the low 200s, and in the parks themselves, far below that. On a Social Security budget, you can land a Gulf-adjacent address, maybe a canal front lot with a dock. That would cost 3 times as much 30 miles south toward Tampa. That math is real. It is also the only number that flatters Hudson, because one risk analysis puts nearly 74% of the town's properties at flood risk. Hudson sits low and unincorporated, with fewer municipal services than an incorporated city and ground that earns its flood zone designations honestly. If the price is the only number you look at, Hudson looks like the deal of a lifetime on the Gulf. The flood maps are the other number. Look at both before you decide. Number 4, Horseshoe Beach. 165 people, 1 road in. The road dead ends at the Gulf, and that is the entire town of Horseshoe Beach. County Road 351 runs out of land in Dixie County's remote Big Bend, and where it stops is a boat ramp, the open water, and modest homes running around $200,000. Genuine Gulf front for that price, with nothing around it for a very long way. No chains, no resorts, no development curve on the horizon. The flats fishing here draws people who know what they're looking for, and the silence is the kind that stops being uncomfortable after a few days and starts feeling earned. What you accept for that silence and that price is a genuine absence of services. The nearest hospital is 19 miles away in Cross City. A health event in Horseshoe Beach is a long drive before you reach anyone who can help. The Big Bend takes direct Gulf hits. Idalia and Helene both raked this coast within 2 years of each other, and when a major storm arrives, there is 1 road out. Horseshoe Beach is for the retiree who wants the water, the quiet, and the low number badly enough to accept that in an emergency, they are on their own for the first hour. 165 people, 1 road, the Gulf. Everything you want and nothing you might need. Number 3, Steinhatchee. Steinhatchee has been doing the same thing for generations. In summer, the scalloping boats go out on the Steinhatchee River toward the Gulf, and the town fills with people who drive hours for the privilege of harvesting their own dinner out of the grass flats. The rest of the year belongs to the fishing guides and the regulars. Redfish, trout, the working rhythms of a river village that has never been turned into something it wasn't. Home values sit around $195,000, making it one of the cheapest working waterfront villages left on the Gulf Coast. That price reflects a village of about 1,000 people that has not been developed, polished, or discovered by the resort industry. And it reflects something more recent and more painful. Hurricane Idalia hit this coast in 2023. Hurricane Helene hit it in 2024. Both times the surge rose well over head height through parts of town. Back-to-back years. I keep coming back to that sequence because it is not ancient history. It is the last two storm seasons. Roughly 2/3 of the housing stock here is second homes and vacation rentals, which means a full-time retiree putting down roots in Steinhatchee is planting them in a part-time town that has just spent 2 consecutive years in storm recovery. It is cheap, and it is genuinely beautiful, and the scalloping is the real thing. The Gulf has sent the bill twice in 2 years. That is not a warning added for legal reasons. That is the price of the address. Number 2, Carrabelle. Carrabelle delivers what this entire list has been pointing toward. A real Gulf fishing village where the median home value sits around $150,000. That is cheap enough to buy outright on savings. That is cheap enough to own the house free and clear and live on a Social Security check. That combination, actual Gulf town ownership on a fixed income, is vanishingly rare in Florida in 2025, and Carrabelle is one of the last places it genuinely exists. The town sits where the Carrabelle River meets the Gulf, on the Forgotten Coast in Franklin County, the eastern terminus of the Intracoastal Waterway. There is a working fishing harbor. There are Gulf beaches out on Dog Island nearby. There is a 1895 lighthouse standing at the edge of a town that has not been renovated into something it never was. Picture this. You own that house, clear, no mortgage, and your Social Security check covers the rest of the month. That scenario is real in Carrabelle in a way it is not real in the towns that get the retirement magazine coverage. The catch keeps the price where it is, and it is not subtle. The local economy leans heavily on the Franklin Correctional Institution. That is the anchor employer, and there is no way to describe it otherwise. Services are thin. The nearest hospital is the small Weems Memorial about 10 miles away in Apalachicola. When you need emergency care, you are looking at a drive and a facility with limited capacity. Carrabelle is proof that affordable coastal Florida still exists. It keeps its price because of what it accepts as a neighbor and what it asks you to accept in return. Number 1, Newport Richey. This is the one this whole list was building toward, and it earns the spot not because it's the cheapest town here. It isn't. But because it comes closest to the complete retirement on a Social Security check that the whole premise promises. The Pithlacaskotee River, the Coatee, runs through the center of town before it reaches the Gulf, and the historic downtown around Sims Park has been genuinely revived. Not in the rendering and announcement sense, but in the concrete sense of riverfront benches, a working boat launch, a concert stage, and a park that actually gets used. This is a real functioning small city downtown built around a river 35 miles north of Tampa. And the numbers, median rent around $880 a month, home prices around $250,000, both well below the Florida coastal average. Not remote fishing village low, livable town low, which is a different and more useful thing. Because the other number that matters at retirement age is hospital access, and Newport Richey has hospitals in town. Not 19 miles away, not a half hour on rural roads. In town. I want to be direct about why that combination matters. This list is full of towns that give you 2 out of 3. The water and the price without the services. The price and the services without the water. Newport Richey is the closest thing on this whole list to all 3 at once, and that is why it sits here. The catch is the honest one, and the payoff of everything this list has been saying. The riverfront and canal homes that give Newport Richey its character, the detail that makes the town worth the drive, sit in FEMA flood zones. The water that defines the town's appeal is the same water that shows up on your flood insurance bill. That is not a bureaucratic footnote. It is the central fact. The river is the reason to be there and the reason the insurance matters. There is no version of Newport Richey where the Coatee is charming without also being the thing you price into your monthly budget. It is the closest thing Florida has to a coastal town where a retiree can genuinely make Social Security work and still be on the water. The river gives you the life. Respect what it can do on the way back in. On the Florida coast, cheap and water are inseparable, and so are cheap and risk. Every town on this list is real, affordable, and honest about what that price actually buys. If this list made you reconsider the Panhandle or the Nature Coast or the Coatee River, give it a like. It genuinely helps this reach the people who are trying to figure out where to retire without going broke. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. The Big Bend goes deeper than what we covered today, and there's a whole list of towns up there where Social Security buys a lot more and the crowds haven't found it yet. Which town on this list would you actually move to? And what's the catch you could live with? Leave it in the comments.